Hello, Amory friends. Welcome back to another episode of Amory. As always, I'm so excited to introduce our next guest, and I feel like she's going to bring so much into this conversation. So, Marie, I'm ecstatic to have you here for people so they kind of know your background. So we just figured this out. Marie's first language is French, so I'll say Marie Thouin, or Marie Thouin is the founder of Love Insight, a mindful dating and relationship coaching practice where she supports people of all backgrounds and relationship styles in creating a vibrant love life. We all want that. Marie is also a leading scholar and researcher on the topic of compersion in consensually non-monogamous relationships. She disseminates her research freely at whatiscompersion.com. And Marie, I will just say, I looked up your dissertation on that website. You have a link, and it's almost 600 pages of content. I am blown away. I just looked at it and I'm like, oh dear God, there's so much good stuff in here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much we'll dig into all of your research, but I do want to make sure people know that they can find a whole lot more from you in many ways. I'll leave that as a little teaser. But Marie, thank you for coming on here. I'm so curious, what got you started in the field of compersion? And then I'm sure we'll switch into your interest in dating as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Megan. It's so good to be here. I am super excited for our conversation. And just so people are not afraid of 600 pages, about half of that are interview transcripts from the interviews I conducted with people. And I love that part because that's the raw data. That's the real stories. And of course, I quote them in the text in the dissertation, but you know, if people want to read about half that long, they can as well.
Good. That's a little less intimidating.
Yes, exactly.
But oh my God, your findings there are so interesting. And I know still now in the field of academia, non-monogamy is not necessarily the first thing people go to or want to study right away. Mm-hmm. What got you interested in studying compersion of all things?
Right. You know, I always felt uncomfortable with the paradigm of mononormativity, which is a big word that means that monogamy is considered the only valid option relationally in our society. Like when we go outside of those lines of the nuclear family model, you know, we usually get a lot of comments like, oh my gosh, like you're a slut or you're immoral, or, you know, like it's not a legitimized relationship style. And growing up, you know, and exploring my own sexuality in high school and college, I always felt like that doesn't make sense to me. Like sometimes I do want to, you know, be with more than one person at once. And that's what my heart wants to do. It doesn't feel like a pathology, or it's just like what comes naturally to me. And so I started researching and wondering about people who lived that way and what challenges they encountered and what made those relationships work. And eventually I went to a conference called The Future of Monogamy and Non-Monogamy at UC Berkeley. And I encountered the word compersion for the first time. And that's when I just had this light bulb moment that was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a linchpin of a new paradigm, or a paradigm of love that I would want to live in. Because I don't advocate non-monogamy over monogamy, but I advocate the idea of love being something that is supportive of the other, no matter what their truest expression is. And compersion, that's what it means to me. It's like, oh, okay, like whatever you want to be and express, and however you want to express your love, as someone who loves you, I want to support that as much as possible.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. And in your writing, you talk about, I mean, compersion goes so much farther than just our intimate relationships. Right. You know, there are examples of compersion that you note that you could be happy for a coworker getting a raise or not. You know, right. You could be happy for a loved one succeeding in an area. You know, there's just so many other ways that we can be happy for other people. And it is kind of a different paradigm other than jealousy, and where jealousy is just so the norm. Mm-hmm. So any tidbits for our listeners on the things that you found that maybe were surprising, or some things that are not so surprising, very self-evident? Just anything off the top of your head that you want to share?
Right. Well, my research really focused on the factors that promote compersion in consensual non-monogamy and the factors that hinder it. And these were grouped in different categories, like there was the individual category, the relational category, and the social category. And that created a map that people can use. And yeah, if they want to go on my website, they don't have to read the dissertation. I actually have articles, that are pretty short about this. I created a small ebook where they can, use a spreadsheet and look at how people position themselves in these factors, like ideological commitment to consensual non-monogamy values. Are people really on board ideologically? Inner security, feeling really secure within yourself. That's a big one.
It's huge. That's where I spend a lot of my time in supporting people.
Yes, self-love, exactly.
The self-love part, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, there's so many overlaps. But yes, please continue. What are the other areas?
The other ones are security and a sense of trust and communication within the relationships. The sense of trust and communication with metamor and how we, integrate metamor relationships. There's also the perception of benefits from a partner's other relationships, because
definitely, I know I have reaped many benefits from my partner's partner and what he has learned there. Yeah.
And then finally, the social factor is community, belonging to communities that validate your identity as someone who colors outside the lines and, creates non-monogamous relationships, because people who don't have that kind of support oftentimes will have a harder time with being fully on board with their identity.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like we could talk. We could do a whole podcast on any one of those areas.
Yes, exactly.
The one area that stands out to me, I don't know if you just listed it, but it was in one of your articles, was just when a person's needs are met. And so when we have our own cup full, when our needs are met, it's a lot easier to be happy for our loved ones. When we don't feel like our needs are met, we're not resourced, then it's a lot harder. And that is real, right? There are needs. We do have, kind of a number of resources that we can reach out to. And then when they're not met, everywhere from we haven't slept enough all the way to I haven't had enough time with my partner and I'm feeling a lack in that area. So all of these things are real. Compersion is not just this like airy-fairy concept. It's like, no, it emerges when a certain set of things have been met.
Exactly.
But I realize we could go on, on and on and on about compersion, but you also have another area that I'm fascinated with only because I haven't entered in that world very much, which is dating. And I know you and I off air have talked a lot about conscious dating and showing up consciously in relationships and intimacy. What was the bridge for you to go from compersion and the study and really like academic work to now you actively coaching with people in the area of consciously dating?
Right.
Describe that process a little.
Well, to me, they're very parallel because, again, my intrigue in the domain of relationships in general was just this idea that there is a dominant paradigm, there's a dominant set of ideas that we all kind of grow up with as the model that we must follow to create our romantic relationships. And then there's those of us who don't feel comfortable with that model, where it doesn't totally fit. And what do we do with that? How do we become intentional and how do we free ourselves from preconceived ideas about love and what it means to be in a healthy romantic relationships? Can we create our own maps and our own unique versions of what it means to love each other? So, to me, that's what brought me to, non-monogamy. And that's what brought me to the idea of mindful dating.
Mindful dating. And I feel like that's not necessarily the cultural norm right now. If you're talking about paradigms and it's become, it feels like transactional dating.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I'm so curious because I feel like I haven't done it personally in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know ever, actually. I heard you on another podcast and you were talking about the similarities between the dating world and entrepreneurship. And you said that it was kind of an aha moment for me that the way that we relate in our dating world and putting ourselves out there on, on an app, and how we talk about ourselves and represent ourselves in the digital world, that can be very intentional and mindful, and it can be a practice of love, and we're emanating ourselves a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can look at that in the world of business and like putting yourself out there in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had this aha moment where I'm like, oh my God, that's actually a skill I don't have very much because I never did online dating. And actually even the parallel of trying to get myself out there in the business world of saying, well, this is what I'm about and this is what I'm looking for. I'm like, oh, ding, 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 I have a place to work. And it just came about like from your parallels there.
Right.
Yeah, it was so interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I love that parallel because it's all about authenticity in my book. Like when you are fully yourself and you let yourself shine and you like can find a way to put aside the things that aren't you and aren't really your full-hearted expression, you create a big magnet that attracts the right people to your field. And that is totally true in my experience with business, and that it's totally true in dating. Not to say that, if you're authentic, you wouldn't attract also the wrong people maybe, but there's also, an aspect of discernment and just, like being really whole with yourself, I think is kind of like the core aspect of my philosophy and my coaching. That's what I help people with. I help give them permission to just show up as themselves.
Oh my gosh. And it's interesting because you're coaching people with dating, but you're really helping them to get to know themselves, right? To say, this is okay. I can show up like this. I can claim this part of me.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what comes out of when you work with people like that? Did they ever have realizations about themselves or just the self-acceptance piece as they're going through with you in this process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a process of self-discovery, which I love. It's so fun to work with people in that way. And I mean, we uncover all kinds of things. Sometimes we might even uncover the fact that there's big parts of them that don't want a relationship at all. They don't want to be in a partnership. And here they are hiring me and saying like, my family is putting a lot of pressure on me. I need to get married, within a couple of years. And what we start to uncover is like, oh, wait, is that really, really what you want?
Wow.
It can go
That's
so
huge.
many different ways. Like we never know where we're going to end up. It's really much of a journey. And sometimes, like it's a matter of really owning the fact that they actually do want love and they do want partnership, and they've never really let themselves want it fully because they're afraid that they're not going to receive that and it's going to hurt too much. Like how do you really, get behind your true desires?
Our own needs, right? I've been exploring that recently, and I signed up for this class on somatic attachment therapy, and I'm realizing, oh my God, I have patterns around my needs, the way I relate to my own needs. So I can imagine when you work with people, what comes up is our own need truly for love. But then we can push it away, right? If we're like, oh, but it doesn't feel scary to need that, because then what if it isn't met? And then what does that say about me? And how do I deal with that unmet need? And I just have like, my heart goes out to all humans everywhere, right? In this area of like, oh my God, we so need love and it's so scary. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. What have you learned getting into this realm? You work with people so intimately. So intimately. What have been the surprises, the challenges? I mean, there's just probably so much that you could talk about there.
Yeah, there's so many. But as we're talking right now, what comes up very strongly is just like the fact that there's oftentimes a key for people who are really focused on what they want to get from dating and switching that around to what they want to give. That's oftentimes a key to, finding your true authentic self is like start giving more love everywhere in your world. That's oftentimes an advice like I give because people come to dating from a place of deprivation or also like from almost like a consumerist attitude.
Yeah. That's the transactional piece
exactly. It's like,
was talking about. It's like, oh, I'm going to, I can just swipe, I can just buy more, I'll just swipe more. And it just, that to me, again, like from an outside feels so connecting intimately with another human being. There's There's like a whole set of things happening on the other side.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, coming
Sorry,
from
I feel like I interrupted your flow.
No. I mean, I think we're so on the same page on this, like how do you create that real, intersubjective connection? Like, to use a psychology term, like, well, what is that in between two human beings that wouldn't be there just, with two individuals? Like there's something really magical that can get created that's like the third almost, like that's
oh my God. I'm like, talk dirty to me, Maddie. Talk dirty. Like, bring it. I love this. Intersubjective. Like, bring it on. I love this. It's so juicy. This is like my jam. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there is something that is created in that space, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, keep going. Like, tell me more about that space and what it means to you.
Yeah. Like what happens when you put kind of like your agenda aside or your ego aside and you really make yourself available for connection. And you can do that on a first date. You don't have to be, in a fully committed partnership to get to that place. That can be a way of life. You can just really say to yourself, like, okay, like, let me really be curious about this person. Let me really get a glimpse into their world. Let me, put my own mind aside in some respect and come from my heart and really a desire to connect and a desire to be impacted by this person. The desire to be
let's
impacted.
Follow this one. Be impacted by someone. Mm-hmm. We literally are allowing ourselves to be changed. Mm-hmm. When we truly open up our heart for a minute, for a day, for a year, we change. Yeah. And there's like some fear that can be around that, but like the juiciness of we are only ever changed by other human beings, right? Mm-hmm. Something new coming into our world or something new coming out of us, right? Mm-hmm. But that place, that's like, that is pure intimacy that you're describing, right?
Yes.
Fully being present. And it's not a muscle we have generally. Right. Like, I mean, you were in the world of academia and yet I find you so present. What has been your own process through that? I mean, you even talked about before we started the call how compersion work was really intellectual. It was very in your head. And the dating piece is in your heart. Like, how did you get there from here to here?
Right. And thankfully, I have done, a lot of spiritual work in parallel to my academic work to just kind of remind myself, like, the juice of life is to be in my heart. And my goal is always to bring more heart to my academic work as well. And there is definitely some heart in the compersion work, but sometimes, as a researcher, I have to approach it with a very left brain fashion. And, the way I talk about it, it's like, oh, here's the data and here are the themes. And, I work hard to try to connect and bridge the, left brain and right brain and the heart and all of that. But I feel like oftentimes like what we care the most about ultimately comes from pain points. And that kind of pain of feeling like I never totally fit in the normative models of society relationally and wanting to create a different world or participate in creating a more inclusive world where people can feel free to express themselves and be themselves and love in the way that feels really authentic. Like I was lucky enough to get experiences, in that realm and have people in my life that helped me, love and be in an authentic way that it felt like my role on this planet was to share that more broadly and to help people, have that sense of permission.
Yeah. Oh, would you share a little bit of your spiritual journey too? I understand your academic journey a little bit more maybe than your spiritual journey. What does that mean to you?
As a teenager, I was one of the most awkward people you could have met. I was the archetype of this like nerdy kid, like very heady, very, socially awkward, like just the way
we would have been friends.
Oh, yes. Oh, good. I needed that. I needed that. because I didn't have
That's why we
friends.
connect now. But yes, keep going. So I see you as a little Minnie.
Thank you. So yes, I just didn't fit in. I think the way I was raised, like I was just really heady, and I didn't have the street smarts to really navigate the whole like middle school, high school social scene. And I became really shut down emotionally. There's part of me that decided like, okay, I don't fit in. I'm just gonna, be okay with being a loner and doing my own thing. I don't like people. They don't like me. It's okay. I'm just gonna kind of ride this spiritual journey or this life journey in a more solo fashion, and maybe have a few people that I like that are on my side, but kind of ignore the rest of humanity because people are dangerous. People are mean. People are not on my side.
Yeah.
And in a sense, that was one step of liberation for me because I gave up on fitting in. I decided like, okay, I don't want to fit in. I'm just going to give up on that and try to find myself independently. But then as I went on that journey of finding myself independently, I realized that I couldn't do that, that my journey actually meant that I needed to find a way to open my heart anyways, in spite of that pain, in spite of having felt so rejected, and in spite of having felt like an outcast and someone who didn't belong. And how was I going to do that? How would I create a love and a sense of belonging to humanity in like a big sense that was going to make sense for me and allow me to bring my heart back on the table and kind of heal that shutdownness?
Was that conscious? At what point did that hit you? Was that something you were always kind of with, or was there a certain aha moment?
There were quite a few aha moments, but after high school, I decided to go travel instead of just, I did a little bit of college and then I dropped out of college and I decided to go on a traveling journey, just me and my little backpack. That's when I left Canada
so much.
And I came to the US and I went to so many places and met so many people. And I was really on a spiritual quest. Like I would go to Buddhist temples and, Hare Krishna people and anyone who had a spiritual sense of framework or lineage or, I would just go explore it all. And it never felt like anything really specific was sticking. But then I also, as I was meeting people and staying with different people on the road, I just realized that I had this big bottleneck around relationship. I could never really maintain a really great relationship for too long. Like something would come up or I would somehow sabotage the relationship. And it just felt like it became apparent that this was my bottleneck spiritually. I didn't need a religion. I didn't need a path. I just needed to open my heart and create harmony with other people. So I decided that I needed to stop traveling and establish a new home, a new location where I could have really real friendships. And so, I fell in love with the San Francisco Bay Area and I've been here ever since. And now I have a really amazing community of friends and loved ones. And it is still my path to this day. I'm still every day looking at the places where my heart is closed. And maybe, jealousy comes up or judgment comes up, and all these things that just come in the way of me really just loving another human being. That is my path. I just realized that.
Oh my gosh. Ditto, 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 ditto. I fully understand you. I really do. I fully understand you. I have a correction to be made too. You speak French, but you're from Canada.
Right.
So when I introduced you in the beginning, I said you're French. No, you speak French from Canada.
French-speaking
Canada. Yes. Okay. I'm on like mental note to make sure I get people's biographical information correct. But I totally understand that. And I think it sounds like, or what I hear from you, it feels like a lifelong calling. It feels like it is emerging right now as in your work. And so first in your academic studies and now in your work and coaching and supporting people with conscious dating, connecting, this inquiry. If you were led by one question, what question is that? What is the question in your heart that's like, oh,
that is such a good question. I think the question would be, how do I love in spite of it all? In spite of the pain, in spite of feeling rejected, in spite of, in spite of it all.
Yeah.
In every moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah.
So parallel. Yeah. It's just this exploration of love and connection. And I don't know if you've had the same realization as me, but every time I feel like I crave to connect intimately with people. And it doesn't mean physically. It means like, in this moment, I see you and I let you see me, and we're having this shared experience and we're letting each other be changed. And it's the hardest space to get into still, there's like the ego pieces that pop up, the insecurities that might be there. I feel like on this road of self-love, which is kind of my inquiry that I've been on, it's gotten a lot easier, at least, to see the resistance that I put up in between me and another human. I'm just wondering, what have you learned for yourself? Are there still places that pop up for you when you feel that space in between you and another human?
Yeah, like you're talking about like blocks and things that are in the way. Oh yeah. I feel like fear, is a big one, and it takes so many flavors. And sometimes it is comparison. It is the fear of not being good enough. Sometimes it's the fear of being rejected, or the fear of just being irrelevant. Like I was at a workshop this weekend, and I uncovered, some big aspects of me that were competitive with people. Even though, like I'm a researcher on compersion, which is, I stand for that.
That is why you're in that work.
Exactly. Sometimes we teach what we're learning, right? And what we need to learn.
100%. Yeah.
And there's never an end point, an end of the road, where we are just completely healed and that's it. Like there's layers upon layers of things that get revealed when we do that work, which makes it so interesting, so vibrant.
Yeah.
And I uncovered the part of me that feels very deeply insecure and ultimately sometimes doesn't want other people to shine more than I am. And even though that's against everything I stand for, there's still this kind of deeply rooted part of me that is afraid of being irrelevant or not measuring up or not being the best, and ultimately creates huge walls between me and other people because of that ingrained competitiveness. And that is, something I think we're all at some level born with, it's in our DNA, it's very deeply rooted. And we have to be so diligent to not let it affect our relationship and to not let it, be the first thing that people would see.
Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that. I really appreciate that. I really see that as you do your work, the reason that you're so successful with your clients is that you step into these arenas. Like you step in, the territory. You're able to guide people in that because you're doing the work in those parts too. Yeah, our shadows are so tricky.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, don't look at me.
Yes.
I'm going to rule your life. Don't look at me. Yeah, it's really, really crazy. And to me, I mean, I have those parts and more. And from just walking through and holding that part of me and not shunning it and shaming it and blaming it more and making it wrong and like all of that I want to do to all of these pieces, right? That are like, oh, but I don't want to know that part of me. I don't want to be led by that part of me, but it's there. And it's present. And how do I not acknowledge it? It's just that piece, that work is incredible, incredibly rewarding, hard. I don't know. I don't know if you have any more support or tricks of the trade that you use for yourself with clients. How do you create a safe space to look at those pieces that are so hard to look at?
Well, I think having the right people around is always so incredibly supportive. You know, having a community of people who are doing that work as well and are willing to have those really real conversations is priceless.
It really is. Yeah.
And even if we don't have that, you know, or just kind of independently of the fact, like my go-to when I notice I am creating a wall with someone and I don't want to be creating a wall, it's always to come forward and come forward with a sense of generosity and giving. Like this weekend, you know, the person I realized that I was feeling competitive with, when I realized it, I just, you know, kind of decided I was going to give him extra support and extra love and extra, you know, like kind of find the opposite in my heart, you know, like come from giving rather than that deprivation. Again, like I feel like the antidote to feeling insecure and deprived is giving. And, you know, in that giving, there's a giving to yourself as well. You are feeling your own fountain of love when you're activating it towards another person. Like it fills you up. It fills the void in you. It's not about self-sacrificing and just giving out without feeling like you're full. No, it fills you up and it puts you in the position of abundance rather than that position of deprivation. So shifting
that
the
fountain
energy.
of love. Oh my God, I love that so much. That fountain of love. Yeah, because you are sourcing that feeling. I mean, ultimately, love is flowing through us anyway. We think other people are the object of our desire, the object of love. They're not. They might be the catalyst to feel safe, to allow that love to flow through. So I love your antidote. And it's so hard in the same time too, because you have to switch, you know, if that you're feeling competitive with that person, but to go like, no, I am here. I am enough. I have enough. And I have so much that I could actually give it right now. That is like master's level, Marie. That is master's level of relating. It is giving that which you wish to receive.
Yes.
And knowing that you always, you have that. Yeah.
And I want to connect it back to compersion too, because that is to me also the essence of compersion. And yes, I created this whole map of like what promotes compersion, what hinders it. And I never want to make someone wrong for not feeling compersion because like you said, there are circumstances that will promote it and enable it. And some circumstances just don't. And you have to just be, you know, in a space of self-love and self-acceptance, whatever you're feeling. And I think there's so many opportunities in those contexts of consensual non-monogamy and wanting to create love when it's hard, to invoke that sense of like, yes, okay, like even though I don't feel abundant right now, like can I actually invoke that? Can I create that? Can I connect with that inner fountain that's actually available?
And that is our power, right? That is our superpower as humans.
That's our freedom.
To know that that's there. It's our freedom. It is our freedom. I love it. Oh, I don't know if it was a conversation I had with you or I felt like I had it because I was listening to one of your other podcasts, but you were talking about the spirituality in dating and that piece. And I was like, yes, oh my God, I want to talk more about that. Will you share your thoughts on the spiritual process of dating?
Oh, yes. I love that so much. So I think as we date, it's such an opportunity to be confronted with different triggers and different emotions that are inside of us. Like it's a bit of a gym, really, like a spiritual gym or an emotional gym, because there's not many other circumstances in life that allow us to meet a lot of new people in such a short period of time, as well as really kind of feeling like we're putting our heart on the line in some way, just to be in a space of dating and declaring, hey, I am wanting love, I am wanting connection, I am wanting a relationship. Naturally, that brings up to the surface a lot of our shit, to use a technical term.
Well said.
Yes, a lot of the barriers that we have built against love and against connection. A lot of our fears, our insecurities, our judgments. And I think it can be a huge part of our spiritual path to observe ourselves when we're dating observe, like, how am I feeling? What is actually happening as I'm, encountering these people and these interactions, these circumstances, and look at how do we fill ourselves up in those circumstances when sometimes we feel negatively, we feel triggered, we feel off balance. Like, how do we keep having our own back emotionally as we are going through those motions?
Yes, yes, and yes. Do you have one technique that you work with people? What is one way people can keep themselves refueled as they put themselves out there and try to open up their heart?
Gosh, it's hard to name just one. Definitely, I think self-care is super important. Like just having really diligent, scheduled physical self-care. I would advise it to everyone, but especially people who are putting themselves in emotionally vulnerable situations on a regular basis, and dating will do that. So make sure that you always take care of yourself first, and you get your sleep, you get good exercise and food and whatever you need to do to feel like you have your own back in a very fundamental way. I always,
oh my God, it's amazing what a good night's sleep does.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I think it's so underrated. Yeah, all the basics, the sleep, exercise, eating well, like our emotional capacity is different, right? In a state when we've been taking care of ourselves versus sleep deprived, not eating well, haven't exercised in a while, haven't met our own needs. That's hugely different. So huge.
And it's like a reminder also to ourselves, I think, that, okay, like I have my own back. I am taking care of myself. I am already filled up. And, you can come to dating from a place of a little bit more of an overflow rather than feeling like, oh, I don't even have my own back and I'm waiting for someone else to do that for me and to take care of me.
I can see the patterns, the way we set them up right away.
Right?
Like, oh, I'm not doing this very well. I'm feeling low. Oh, quick, grab onto somebody that can do it for me.
Yes. Yeah. Like the fuller our cup is, the more positive our connections with others will be. So I think.
And the less we'd be willing to take disrespectful behavior.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. If you don't treat yourself very well, then you're a lot more susceptible to letting other people not treat you very well. You set the standard.
Yeah. Like this is where I feel like we overlap so much. I feel like I'm doing the inner work, like people dating themselves. Like, how do you take care of yourself? And then you're doing the work on how do you see that reflected back as you put yourself out and as you date. You're very much in that connection, that mirrored state of like, how do you see yourself in relating?
Right.
It is. And these are mirrors that we get back all the time. The hard part is, though, I feel like we have these mirrors that we get through relating with others, but sometimes it's hard to know how clear the mirror is. It's like, man, does that shit need to be cleaned off? Is that really how it is? Is that really how I am? Or is that a clear reflection of me that I don't want to see? Do you have any insight around that? Like, how do you deal with that mirroring effect of the way that we relate to others?
That's a tricky one because it can feel like this hall of mirrors, like, or this, what is it, like a fun house when like there's all these distorted mirrors.
Exactly.
And I think that's when a good coach or a therapist or really insightful friends can be priceless because, if you have someone else helping you kind of make sense of this distortion, it can be really, really helpful because sometimes, it's harder to see ourselves totally clearly, especially if we are triggered and we're emotional, we're invested, we're biased, basically.
Totally.
So
we got to make sure we have good people around us that are clearer mirrors. And especially if we hear it from more than one person.
Yes.
That's kind of my cues. Like, oh, I heard it from here and here. I mean, in many ways, that's why polyamory has worked very well because there's pieces of myself, my shadow, I don't want to see very much. And, when I get it reflected back from Marty and Kyle at the same time or close to the same time, I'm like, God damn it. Shit. Okay. It is me. All right. Versus when it's just one person, it's kind of like, well, Yeah, it's one opinion. Like that's their opinion. Like it's a little harder when it's multiple.
Right.
But yeah, to your point too, that's why you work with a coach also.
Yes.
And a third party that isn't invested or has like it's not emotionally invested in some of the same things that are happening can have that step back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're
What
invested
has
in
been some of your
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish.
Oh yeah, you want someone who's invested in your well-being, not in the outcome.
Ah, yes. Well said. Oh my gosh. So tell me, what do you love about working with people one-on-one?
I love the uniqueness of every person's path and story. And to me, in a way, that is a way that I create a lot of that inner subjective space in my life. When I walk into a coaching session, there's no, determining exactly and knowing in advance exactly what's going to happen. Like we work with what is coming up in the moment and what is really true for them. And there's no like, I have this framework of mindful dating, which is helpful to help, people wrap their head around the process and really structure our work so we know where we're going. But it's not formulaic. Like every person's path will look 100% different. And it's about finding like what is true for you. And that is such an emancipatory process. I see people just kind of coming alive when there's that connection, our coaching connection, that gives them permission to be more of who they truly are. And people light up. People feel lighter. They feel just more free to love. And then we get to witness how that changes other people's reaction to them and how it creates different relationships. And that is such a beautiful process.
Wow. Oh, what an honor, right? I hear so much gratitude in you and being able to hold that space for other people.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard you say outside of this, I think, is like people finding their own medicine, like they are their own medicine. Yeah. And that you are there as like part of a process of it, or just to show them, to hold space so that they can see that they are leading this.
Yeah. It's a little bit like midwifery.
Yes.
There's no, I'm not trying to tell them what they should believe, but it's like, I just make space for what they really believe and for that to be true and for that to be their inner sense of authority rather than, always relying on external, sources of authority, like really discovering and reinforcing your own inner compass.
Yeah. I can so relate too. I love that process as well. And it's interesting because when people hire a coach, instinctively they kind of give their power away, and not on purpose, or it's not like you're asking for it, but it's really, I love it when I encounter people that are like, no, like this is your power. Like I'm going to hold space for you in this process. Yeah. And that is the power,
right?
Is holding space and allowing people to step into their own wisdom. Yeah. It's also kind of scary too, because, it's like people have to be confronted with like, wait, you're not going to fix this for me. You're not going to fix me. You're not going to do this for me. Have you encountered that too?
Yeah. Sometimes people are, some people really like more of a directed relationship. Like they will literally tell me like, please tell me what to do. So it's an art to, in a way, like being able to help people have a framework and have, their process and tell them like, okay, like, try to go on 6 dates this month, or, like just kind of help people have guidelines.
Because it creates security that way, right? It's like, okay, I have something to do now.
Exactly. And I like that too. When I work with my own coaches, sometimes I ask very directly for advice and for opinions of people I trust. So it's a balancing act, but then, to not take that power away from them, but actually to always reflect that back. Like, okay, like now that you've done that, now that you've gone on those 6 dates, what have you learned?
Yeah.
And how does that affect the next steps for you?
Yeah. Those are the big questions.
Right.
That's the big work. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of like I think, a physical coach, like if you're going to go work out, they're not in your body. You can't, delegate them the sense of, like what do you want to create in terms of your body, but they can give you very specific exercises that are helpful.
Yeah. You're kind of that emotional the dating emotional trainer.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you learn? What muscle are you still building?
Yeah. And sometimes also
I love that.
being, someone who can help point out blind spots. Sometimes I have people who come to me and they're like, hey, I have these patterns. I always attract, the kind of bad boy person who doesn't treat me well. And can you help me recognize it when I go in that direction? And so I can be kind of like an alarm bell, like, hey, what I'm seeing is that it seems like you're going into this direction that you don't want to go into. You want to break that pattern. Like, let's look at this.
Oh my gosh. I just realized how many people you have the capacity to support in this.
Oh, it's so
like a dating fairy godmother. Like, sweetie, you told me to tell you when you might be doing this pattern. I think it might be happening.
Let's look at this.
Let's look at this. Do you want to go down this path? You can. It's totally your you can if you want. Do you want to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What are some other things that are lighting you up these days?
Oh my gosh. I'm just so pumped with my work. So yeah, I love my one-on-one coaching, but I'm also now in the process of writing a book on compersion that's based on my dissertation. I just signed a book contract, so super excited about bringing that work into the world in a maybe more digestible way than the 600 pages downloadable dissertation. And updating
That's for the geeks like me. That's great.
Yes.
No, I love that. That's fantastic. And what a different world too, that the book writing process versus the being engaged one-on-one with people and that intimate connection. Right. Oh my God. What have you learned about yourself in writing?
Oh gosh, that is so interesting because there is oftentimes an element of resistance when I go into a big project like that, which, I experienced with my dissertation writing. And yet I need to always remind myself of my why. Why am I doing this? And, in anything in life that is difficult and challenging, we have to constantly remind ourselves, why am I doing this? Like, what's on the other side of this that I really value and want? And that commitment to the why usually, takes me through in such beautiful and unexpected ways.
Oh, I love that. And I'm so excited to have something in book form. I see a second podcast in our future.
Yes.
When that book comes out.
Yes.
Then we can focus a lot more on compersion. This has been a conversation mostly about dating. But yeah, in the world of compersion, ethical non-monogamy, I'm sure that would go a long way. But Pete, you said you have an ebook, right?
Yeah, it's a
that
very
people could
short
get
one.
Kind of your cliff notes right now.
Exactly. Yeah. They just.
Where do people find that?
Whatiscompersion.com, and there should be a little pop-up that says, download my ebook, the 6 pillars of compersion or something like that. And then, but there's also a tab that says free book on my website. So it's just really condensed version of all of my best findings.
Awesome. What else do you want to share with our Amory listeners here?
Well, like you probably have heard, I just love working with people. And if anyone ever wants to have a little sample of that, I offer 30 minutes free exploratory sessions. You can go on my website, whether it's the Compersion website, whatiscompersion.com, or my mindful dating website, which is loveinsight-dating.com, and just book one. It's a very low-key conversation where we get to know each other, and I can give you some tips and ideas of what maybe we would work on if we were to go into more of a coaching relationship. And it's just nice to get, some preliminary insight.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's so generous with your time and connecting with people. I have loved connecting with you. I know you and I are in a separate group, and so I get more interaction with you on now a bi-monthly basis, and I'm so grateful. I feel like, Marie, your energy and heart is amazing. I feel like we are going to have so much more to talk about, and really sharing kind of a path of the inquiry of love, of how do we bring more of this to the world. And I I feel like that is the work now of our generation. I really do.
Yes.
I feel like whether or not we're doing it on the way that we approach our dating, the way that we approach our work in the world, the conscious partnerships that we're in, no matter what structure, I just feel like this is the work that's happening now if we choose to step into it. So when I get to talk to people like you, where I'm like, you are so in it. It's awesome. I'm like, yes, there's other people that are so in it too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree. I mean, it is the work of our time. I mean, we have incredible technology. We have such evolved areas of life. And yet, I think love and relationship is one area that we just need to focus on more if we are going to make it as a humanity, like
oh
love
my God, yes.
for the planet, love for each other, love beyond borders. That is the next evolutionary challenge in my eyes.
Don't you feel like the people, hopefully, I hope in less than 100 years, are going to look back on our time and be like, whoa, they were like in the dark ages relationally.
I hope so.
Like didn't even understand, like didn't have basic vocabulary, didn't know how to feel what's happening in their body, didn't understand their responsibility for their own nervous system or understanding their needs and communicating that. Like it blows my mind how far we are in certain technology. Yeah. And that we have not updated or even paid any attention to our relational technology, exactly. Which is literally how human beings are surviving on the world.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. It is.
Isn't it crazy?
Depressing and also a very hopeful area where there's just so much low-hanging fruit.
There really is.
Yeah.
There really is. I'm like, why are we not focusing on this? I mean, everything from... Oh, I know we're going on a tangent. I was like, oh, good. We're going to wrap up. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. We could keep talking for hours, exactly. Which we can, but hold on, a couple more minutes. Thank you, Amory listeners, if you're still listening. So yeah, just like, if you think about when a child is brought into this world, they have needs, the way that we first relate, like our first language is in our body. It's not our spoken vocabulary. Right. So that's our first language. We don't talk about that. We have no ways to describe that. We're just now discovering the way that we attach and what that does to our patterns and all this patterned behavior in our world. And it just blows my mind that we spend so much fucking money on war, right? And it's not like, oh yeah, humans raising humans. Like maybe we should put some resources to that. Humans raising humans.
Oh my gosh.
Making sure that they feel resourced as well.
Yeah, so that they don't feel the need to go to war later.
I know. I'm like, this just feels like a no-brainer to me. I'm like, why are we not doing this? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But I go back to my dad was in the Army, and I remember in high school when I found out what the budget for the military was, and I was like, Dad, why in the world do we spend this much money? Like our government's spending this much money on war? And he's like, basically didn't say, all right, little girl, he's like, well, we need to do this. Like, this is what creates safety. And I'm like, now as an adult, I'm like, fuck no, what creates safety is like being resourced, having our needs met, being in safe relationships. Like you think that we could spend a little bit on that. Yes, soapbox. Yes. I don't know what to do with this energy, Marie. But every time I tap into it, I'm just like, I feel like a fireball, ready to knock down some walls. I don't know where to put this.
Oh, well, I love that you're
this
putting
energy
it out into the world, into this podcast, into your clients. I'm so excited for your work as well and what you're creating.
Thank you.
Yes.
Arm in arm. Let's join. Yes. Listeners too, you are part of this. Hello, you're listening. You join arms with us. Like we are creating a new world. This is it.
Safety.
Don't let anybody tell you that what you feel is wrong. Right. That's coming up for a certain reason. There's information there. Let's work together. Let's not ignore it. Let's not gaslight ourselves. Let's be like, all right, we got these things called feelings. Like let's work with it. Let's create some secure relationships.
Oh my gosh, yes. Sounds like you want to write a book too.
Oh my God, I so do. There's a book in me. I haven't quite. I don't know that it's good to hear that you have some resistant energy to that. Because that's what is coming up for me too, is like, I don't even know where to start. But right now, honestly, this talking with you, recording it, putting this out in the world, this is meeting a need for me, a need to be heard in a certain way. And I'm sure at a certain point I will solidify it into the more like written word. But for right now, can I just say thank you for helping me meet a need, which is to be connected, to feel close to another human being, to see and be seen. Thank you for letting yourself be seen with me, Marie.
Thank you, Megan. I feel the same way. It's so joyful. It's so joyful to be seen and loved and accepted and to connect and to create this third thing that we couldn't create in isolation.
Intersubjectivity.
Yes.
I learned a new word.
Relational magic.
Relational magic. Can we just say to be continued, and we'll do this again at some point?
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool. So everybody can find some information at whatiscompersion.com.
Mm-hmm.
The second one at loveinsight
Yes.
dating.com.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool. And you're a beautiful human. So reach out to Marie. Like if you feel her vibe from here, like you will be blessed, you know, I'm sure relationally in this magic that is with you and your clients. So thank you, Marie.
Oh my gosh. Sending everyone a lot of love.
Bye.
Bye.